All right, let's go ahead and get started then. September 1st, call to order the Centerton Planning Commission with the roll call.
Ben Lewis,
Present.
John Sessoms,
I think I read his lips.
I was muted, sorry.
all right, Jerry Harris, I still did not see. Tiffany Morris,
I guess I should have covered the reminder to mute and unmute before we started, huh?
maybe. Amber Beal,
Here.
Craig Langford,
Here.
Devin Murphy,
Here.
Joey Engel.
Here.
Tiffany, you're there, right?
No, because I'm not on mute. I wasn't
Okay.
good either. I don't know.
Alright.
Maybe there's a delay. Maybe that's why you couldn't hear John either. Not
Okay.
sure.
Jeff Seifar.
And Jeff's here. All right, just as a reminder, don't forget to unmute as we go throughout. Please state your name if you're making a motion or a second. Make it a little easier for Todd. For those of you that are joining us this evening, this is an open meeting for the public. And so if you joined us virtually, there is a raise the hand option that is available for you to raise your hand, and then we will recognize you. If you are recognized, we do ask that you state your name, your address for the record, and then we do ask that you try to keep your comments to 3 minutes is what we would normally ask for if we were all meeting together. If you did happen to join us by phone, there is an *9 or *9 that will raise your hand, and then you can be recognized as well. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into the meeting this evening. And the first thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our meeting from 8/18 of 2020.
This is Tiffany. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from 8/18/2020.
This is Joey. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there anyone that is opposed to approving the minutes from 8/18 of 2020? All right, thank you guys. Next on the agenda is under old business, and this is actually a public hearing. This is for rezone 20-15, the Heron property. This is at 960 Buckhorn Flats, A1 to R3 single family. So R3 single family, 26 acres, and C3, which is commercial, 7 acres. This was postponed from our 8/4 meeting due to not meeting all of the notification requirements. And so with that, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
This is Craig. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for rezone 20-15 Heron property.
Devin,
John, I'll second that.
Got a motion in a couple seconds. Is anyone opposed?
I got Devin.
All right, we are now open to the public hearing. Is the applicant here to give us an overview?
There's 2 hands raised, one from Harold Castro and one from Ball Captain LLC.
Okay, so is either Melvin or Terry or Wyatt. I have those 3 folks that may speak on this tonight and give us an overview. Do one of you wish to speak to give us an overview?
I know Ball Capital is a one of the applicants, so I will ask them to unmute.
Okay.
Okay, the Ball Capital should be good to go now.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna try
Is it
Terry
Ball?
Tolbert. She's also part of Ball Capital. So Terry, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My husband and myself are both here. At the office, we have our banker and we have the president and owner, James Ball, and Ernie Ball. They are both, owners of this company. And really, I would like for them to do the speaking as far as what needs to be talked about, if that's good.
Yeah, so we're just asking for the applicant to give a brief overview to the planning commissioners, and of course, there is the public that's here that's listening as well. So just a brief overview of what you guys are asking for.
Okay, well, I'll let them take it away then.
Thank you.
Are they on it?
I don't know.
Were they aware you were going to call on them?
Yes, they are, and I know that they were on this meeting, so I'm sorry, I'm in North Carolina.
They are on, and they've been allowed to speak, and it looks like they're unmuted, but they might be having trouble with their mic. If they can maybe call in and try it that way, or
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll wait for them. Nicole, do you want to go ahead and give us your overview so we can keep moving?
yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
So this is a rezone request of about 32, almost 33 acres from A1 agriculture to R3 single family, which is our high density single family residential district. About 26 acres is being requested to R3 single family, and about 7 acres to C3, which is our neighborhood commercial. This property is located at 960 Buckhorn Flats, which is the northwest corner of Buckhorn Flats and Quail Hollow Drive. The applicant's immediate intentions were stated on their application to develop the property as a residential subdivision to coincide with existing residential subdivisions in the area, with light commercial outlots at the northeast corner, which is shown on the exhibit on the screen. This is for your recommendation. It will go to council on 9/8 for the final decision. Just as a reminder, the high density R3 district, we, as a policy, we have them designate either single family, two family, duplex, or multifamily, because that district does allow for all three. And they are specifically asking for high density single family. So these will be single family lots. The general requirements for the district is that it creates 6,000 square foot minimum lot area with 60-foot minimum lot width and setbacks of 25 feet front and street side and 20-foot rear and 7-foot side. The C3 neighborhood commercial district is primarily for convenience shopping and services such as grocery stores, barber and beauty shops, laundromats, drugstores, taverns, professional offices, and similar uses. It's meant to provide convenient shopping for the surrounding residential areas. And the setback requirements are 25-foot front, 25-foot rear, and 10-foot side and street side. Buckhorn Flats, the east-west portion is designated as an arterial on the current master street plan, which is a minimum of 80 feet. It's proposed as a minor arterial on the current draft master street plan, which is currently proposed at 90 feet of right-of-way. The Buckhorn Flats north-south section is designated collector on the current master street plan with a minimum of 60-foot right-of-way, and is proposed as a major collector on the current draft master street plan with 80 feet of right-of-way. The draft trail plan also shows the main McKissick Springs loop along Buckhorn Flats Road, in particular the north-south section. The surrounding area, there's A1 district. Let me get to my map. There's A1 district to the northeast and west, which is the green on this map. There's RE to the southeast, or I'm sorry, to the southwest, R2 to the south, which is the Quail Hollow subdivision, and R2 to the northeast, which is the Osage Creek subdivision, and then R3 single family to the northwest, which is the approved Featherston subdivision. And then C2 is directly to the north. And there's currently 3 warehouse and office structures on that lot. The requested zoning to R3 single family and C3 may be considered compatible with adjacent zoning and uses. The adopted land use plan has this area designated for mixed use, which is the blue on this map to the right. Mixed use areas, just as a reminder, are described by the current 2009 comp plan as being areas where residential, commercial, office, and green space uses would be appropriate, and businesses are grouped together to encourage pedestrian bicycle traffic. This district provides commercial and personal services of all kinds. The mixed use designation will allow developers flexibility in terms of use, while city regulations will maintain a standard for quality mixed development. The requested zoning to R3 single family and C3 is considered consistent with the current land use plan's designation of mixed use. The draft land use plan, which is not currently adopted, but this is what is being proposed in the area at this time, designates the east portion of the property as business park, which is the blue on this exhibit, and the west portion is designated as medium high density residential. Medium high density residential is described as areas consisting of detached and attached single family residential homes with a density of 7 to 11 units per acre. Attached single family residential can include townhomes or duplex residential properties. These areas encourage greater variety within Centerton's housing stock and allow for more flexibility to build denser residential development in proximity to the city's major roadways such as Centerton Boulevard and Main Street. The requested zoning to R3 single family is considered consistent with the draft land use plan's designation of medium high density residential. And R3 single family may be considered inconsistent with the draft land use plan designation of business park. And the business park is described as areas intended to provide for professional employment and office uses, which could include standalone office building and complexes consisting of several buildings incorporated into a campus-like setting. While certain low-impact light industrial uses such as smaller scale manufacturing and assembling, large-scale storage, distribution, and warehouse facilities may locate within a business park area. They should be of low intensity and complementary scale. Light industrial activities are typically characterized as having little or no environmental impact on surrounding properties. The widespread development of such uses should be discouraged, as in the light industrial aspect of the business parks. Business park uses are typically compatible with adjacent or nearby residential areas, provided they are appropriately buffered and screened. So all that just to give some background with what's on the plan and what's being proposed. The requested zoning to C3 is considered a less intensive use than the designated use of business park on the draft land use plan, which wouldn't be considered inconsistent, although it's not specifically a business park type use. What it may do, however, is provide a buffer for the residential areas from the planned future business park uses to the north, including the concrete plant on Kimmel and Buckhorn Flats up on the corner. And then some of these properties are planned kind of light industrial type uses. I believe that is all I have, unless anybody has any questions. And there are some questions for you guys to consider with the rezone request.
We may come back to you. Was the applicant ever able to become available via either phone or
Yes,
their microphone working?
yes, they got their mic fixed.
All right. Did you guys just want to give us a brief overview? Anything to add to what Nicole had to say?
Yes, we would. We really want to put in a very nice subdivision there. This is James Ball with Ball Capital.
Thank you.
We want to build a community that would have about 76 single family lots, as she was mentioning, and with the three the commercial zoning lots. But we believe that these homes will be of great value. They'll be very nice, and they'll be bi-level homes. And we think the community will be very enhanced with it. We're going to have a walking type biking trail that is along the floodway in this property. That's not mentioned in any of this, but we want to do something that's going to be conducive to the city's all of the city functions, the green space. And so I believe it's going to be a very attractive, well built, and we want it to definitely hold its value and represent the integrity of the community.
All right. Thank you, James. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the public. And just as a reminder, there were some emails that we did receive that would be either part of your packet or that would have been in the Dropbox for your review. So hopefully you guys, planning commissioners, had a chance to review those. But at this time, I would like to open it up to the public. And again, if you'd like to speak, there's an opportunity to raise your hand if you're virtual, and then you can be recognized. Or if you happen to have called in, you can do the *9 and then be recognized as well. And what we do ask is that you state your name and your address for the record. Again, it makes it a little easier for us to capture our notes.
All right, we have 3 hands raised. So we'll start with Harold Castro. He's at the top of the list.
All right, Harold, would you wish to speak to the commission?
Hey, can you hear me?
There?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Harold Castro here. I live in 1501 Quail Ridge Way. My concern with it is right now, there's poor planning on part of the city in terms of an east-west connector to this proposed subdevelopment. It would be a subdevelopment that for residents to get to would have to go through Quail Ridge Way, which is a residential road that wasn't intended to handle that much traffic. We already have issues on the road itself. I saw Mayor's bill one day drive by after I commented on the marks that a truck left because they almost hit into a car coming down the hill. So this road was never intended to handle that much traffic. There's no real speed buffer or reduction in terms of the road, and it's causing major issues already. Now add to it where you're putting a high density residential building with no east-west access other than through an existing residential subdivision. I find it somewhat challenging in terms of how does that really fit into the current community, being that the whole area is really single family homes, and now you're trying to build a high density complex. So that's what I'm trying to propose to consideration. What is it going to be done for the current residents that live here, which most of us already oppose this. Hopefully you take that into consideration as you guys think through the planning for this subdivision, because in the past there has been no help for us in terms of speed mitigation practices to take place on Quail Ridge Road. We do have police presence, and they come here and they stop 5 or 6 people in an hour. So just want you guys to consider that. Like, what is the developer going to do to mitigate the traffic coming through Quail Ridge Way?
All right, thanks, Harold.
Yikes.
The next person on the list is a phone number.
The next person that wishes to speak to the commission there, if you could just give us your name and address, please.
Name is Lena Gibson, and my address is 1230 Stony Brook Lane, Bentonville or Centerton over there in Quill Hollow. My concern with the rezoning of this to R3 and is it C3, I believe, the high density and the commercial is that, like the gentleman before me mentioned, the traffic, but my concern is also with the traffic and the speed going through there is why does that necessarily need to be high density? I understand wanting to build bi-level homes that are single family. To me, that in itself says possibly apartments, duplexes, condos, things that would bring more people to that smaller area that is off of the beaten path, so to speak. Congesting our schools there more than they already are congested, bringing more traffic into that area. And Quail Hollow and Quail Ridge already experience a lot of traffic. And like you said, there's not really any way to mitigate traffic within that area. Recently, a 20-mile-an-hour children at play sign was put up at the edge of the street, and there's one coming in from Greenhouse as well. There's talk of rewidening Greenhouse to have sidewalk on both sides. And I'm wondering if Buckhorn Flats would be that way too, because the corner where the cement plant is, you get a lot of traffic and dirt. They're not cleaning the roads. There's big bump in the road when you go down to go towards the area. If we're going to improve it, we should improve it in other ways besides putting high density and commercial into there, in my opinion. Build another school, build a park, a trail, things the kids in the area will enjoy, and then not bring a ton more people into our area. Adding more children to the schools that are already high population. I know last year, whenever I moved to the area, they had told us that, if we didn't get our child into this school, which was Creekside at the time, that we would have to go to another area. So that already speaks volumes to me. That says, hey, the school's pretty full here. So if we add more kids to that area, where are they going to go? How are our teachers going to properly teach all these children? And it's going to bring more crime and the traffic, and more children to an already populated area. So I just think that, and even if we could change it from R3 to R2, medium, low to medium, instead of high density, I think would be much better. Continue on with how it's going. Other than that cement plant being on that one corner, all around there, we have land and homes going in. I think that if we continue on that path, and instead of making it high density, because none of us want to see apartments in there or duplexes or condos. We want to see homes quite like our own so that our property values don't go down. But we also don't want to see a ton of more people inundating our schools and taking over what's already a hard job for our teachers with the full-size classes that they have, and then the traffic as well. So that's my concern.
All right, thanks, Lena. And just for clarification, they are asking for single family. So there would be, single family, no multifamily in that particular, with their request.
Read the stuff. It said 6 to 7 family homes per acre. How is it that we could do that without, my lot is 0.33 of an acre, 0.32. And I could see maybe, depending on the size of my home, if it was a smaller home, maybe putting 2 there, but not 6 to 7 per, I think that's quite a bit per acre. I'd feel like they were kind of stacked right on top of each other and not keeping with what we've already got going on. So why do we need it to be high density? Why can't it be medium or low? And why do we need commercial in there? I'm just kind of curious if that could be changed. And kind of continue with what we have going on there.
Okay, we'll come back and address that here in just a little bit as we do our wrap up, okay?
Thank you.
All right, and is there one other caller that wishes to speak?
There are a couple.
Who's next that you guys want to recognize?
Okay. And I think Donna just unmuted or asked to unmute a Bridget DeBauer. Pardon me if I butchered your last name.
No problem. It happens all the time. I am, as you say, Bridget DeBoer. I'll actually pronounce it correctly there. Help with that. Located at 10603 Buckhorn Flats. So I am directly across from the subdivision in question. And I'm specifically across from the commercial aspect. So lot 77, 78, 79. So my 10 acres is right there. I am concerned about the commercial aspect of it. I do also challenge, why do we need a commercial aspect to it? And then I also piggyback on the R3 perspective and really trying to, very concerned about what happens if that gets changed midstream. We have no guarantees that it won't. So I prefer, by my own opinion, that it not be immediately in that R3, but actually be the R2 or R1, just so that I have a comfortability about what it might end up being. I also have question in terms of utilities. So this has happened to me as that I have a large acreage. The subdivisions to the south, subdivisions to the north, and obviously I'm having them to the east and now the west of me, which is great. I'm all for progress. However, I would also like to be part of the progress in that the utilities be made available to me. They actually even went across my land with CenturyLink and dropped the fiber optics right in front of me and across me to link the subdivisions, but did not make any drops available to me. Now I am in process right now of trying to find out how do I actually bring it back, and I'll pay for that. But I would like to see our city administration think about existing voters, existing, landowners, property owners, and understand that those utilities and such as it progresses would be something we would certainly want be made available to us as well. So, my questions are in line with, I realize progress is going to happen. I realize we're going to need this. I'm for that. However, there are concerns in what it will do to my land, as far as the value of it with commercial and such coming into play. And also, pointing out along the traffic issues, Buckhorn Flats is absolutely nuts right now with traffic speeding across it and down it. And, there was a sign. I don't know if there's a sign now. I don't remember seeing it, but nobody pays any attention to it. So there's some concerns about that traffic that is now, and where is this subdivision going to have its inlets and outlets on Buckhorn Flats. So I've loaded you with a bunch of questions. I, honestly hope you do unpack those and are able to answer to those, but primarily as a landowner, and I've been here 16 years. So certainly foundationally, I've been here, and I'm all for, again, progress, but I would like for a lot of thought and very deliberate actions being taken to, I guess it was Lena mentioned, be thought about and really the perspectives of, how are we growing? Are we growing in the right manners? What are we doing to make sure those congestions are offset before they even happen?
All right, thanks, Bridget. And I saw a question in there as well. So just for clarification, once the applicant asks for a zoning, which in this case is the R3 and designated single family, and of course the C3, they cannot, I don't want to say they cannot, if they decide that they want to change in what was described as midstream, there is a public hearing and the same notification that would take place, that they would have to come back to us in order to ask for that. They just can't do that without notifying, similar to what they did in this one. So just for clarification, even if we approve single family tonight, they can't change that, on their plans and try to put multifamily or anything else in there. So just wanted to clarify that, because that came up once or twice, and then I saw it in one of the Q&As as well. So just wanted to clarify that. But thank you for your other concerns, Bridget, as well. Okay. Are there any other folks from the community that wish to speak?
There's a Brooke Drake on the
Sorry, go ahead.
Brooke Drake.
Yes, this is actually her husband, Andrew Drake, but we live in the Quail Hollow subdivision on Stony Brook Lane. And I just wanted to voice that I would second the opposition of any commercial or business going in there, especially with as much commercial and business land is available both on 102 and on Airport Road, kind of on either side there. And then also had a question, or just an inquiry about the traffic flow of what the plans are for a single family development going in there. And then also if there's a lot size and a square footage minimum information that would be available to the single family development that's planning on going in.
All right, thanks, Andrew. There is a minimum lot size, as was shared in the overview, which is 6,000 square feet. We do not dictate the size of the house that would be built in regards to that, but there is a minimum lot size.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else, Lorraine or Diane or Donna?
I just wanted to let his name just left me, Mr. Castro. No, he did ask a question. I tried to answer it and accidentally, there we go, hit to answer live. So I guess I will. He asked if Buckhorn Flats will be extended all the way to Greenway. It is on our proposed master street plan that this does extend to all the way to Greenhouse. So from where it ends at Buckhorn Flats and Buckhorn Flats, it is on the plans to be extended all the way to Greenhouse.
Thanks, Diane. His other question was in regards, I believe, to notification. And if I understand correctly, Nicole, all of the appropriate notifications were sent out to the residents according to what needs to be or the people that need to be notified. Is that correct?
That's correct. The code requirement for rezone requests is to mail to adjacent properties within 300 feet. The issue with the first mail out was this area is in a Bentonville zip code, and they used the incorrect zip code. So they all got returned to the applicant. So they redid their list and sent them out, and the receipts were returned successfully. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
There's a Robert Goding.
Hey, good evening, all. I'd just like to go back to the comment about greenhouse. Actually, Robert Goding, I live at 1311 Quail Ridge Way, so right across from the Buckhorns Flat suggested neighborhood. Can we go back and confirm that the Buckhorns Flat east-west road will continue all the way to Greenhouse? Is that confirmed?
It is currently shown on the draft master street plan to extend all the way from, well, I don't know where it begins, but all the way to Greenhouse Road as a minor arterial. It is a draft plan. It has not been adopted yet, just to clarify that. It's also on the current master street plan as extending all the way to Greenhouse Road.
Okay, because that road would be, if confirmed, would be directly behind our homes, but would go through property that's across from the Buckhorns suggested neighborhood. And there's homes through that way when you get to the greenhouse area. So I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you.
Thank you. I was trying to look at some of the questions as well, because one of the questions is, do we drive around? Do we look at things? And I would say that sometimes we take the time. I can't answer specifically in regards to this one, but I would tell you that this area has actually been on the plan for quite some time as well. And we talked a little bit about it in regards to the master street plan, along with our draft that's coming up as well, that we've been working on for, gosh, coming up on 2 years now. So I just wanted to address that as one of the questions. And I see in regard to, developing Buckhorn Flats ahead of time. Gosh, if we could develop all the streets ahead of time, it'd be easy. But unfortunately, it's not sometimes. And so I don't think that we could hold up a development just because there's there's a street that's not developed. It's not part of what we necessarily consider. And then is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak?
There are 3 raised hands again. 2 of them have spoken. There is one that is a phone number 479, ends with 704.
Okay.
That has not spoken.
Let's let the phone number speak.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, this is Sandy Townsend, and I'm using Heather Heron's phone. We're down at her house. Gene and Marvin Tonsing are here too. But the Tonsings and myself are concerned. We're wanting to know if the developer is planning on putting privacy fence between their development and our land that adjoins it.
Did you say Sandra Thompson?
Townsend.
Okay, and your address?
My address is 10790 Buckhorn Flats Road. I'm on the, it adjoins me on my north side, their south side.
I'm just trying to get it for the record. Thank you.
We can certainly ask the developer, but it would not necessarily impact our decision this evening, and they could.
Well, no, I assume it wouldn't, but I'd just like to kind of, let them know that we would really like, some kind of privacy fence. I know with the Featherston development, that was one of the things that Steve and Janice had questions about, and I think they agreed to put that developer agreed to put a fence between the properties, and we're hoping that the plan is that the 2 of us that adjoin that land can get privacy fence too.
So what I would recommend, number one, they are on the phone and they did hear you in regards to that, but their information is available. It's a public record. I would certainly encourage you to reach out and have a conversation with them, as well.
Okay.
It's probably the best way to do it.
Okay. And no plans, I don't guess, for a signal light on Greenhouse anywhere up through there so we can get out on Greenhouse.
So Rick Hudson's on here. I don't know that anything's been fully decided yet. I don't know if Rick, if you want to discuss anything that you may know about Greenhouse.
It's really all just in the planning stage right now. We did get approved with the regional planning of the grant. The design process has started. So it's really too early in the design process to know. Really what we're expecting is a 3-lane road with turning in the middle, but nothing confirmed yet. Give us 6 months to a year, then we can tell you is design, acquisition, relocating utilities. We're still expecting 5 years for the process.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. All right. Let's go ahead and go back. Who are the two that have already spoken? We can recognize them again.
Hello.
Hey, Bridget.
Hey. So I wanted to ask about the Buckhorn Flats and widening, curbing, guttering, sidewalk. What might they be doing or talking about for that? And then the Buckhorn Flats going straight through to Greenhouse. The owner to that is right next to my land, and I know she's totally unaware of that occurring because she owns that right up into the back of the yards that are right there. So I know she's totally unaware of that concept. So just FYI.
Thanks, Bridget. Rick, were you going to say something? Sorry, I wasn't sure who was going to speak there.
Yes, this is an area that is being redesigned. We're in the process with our comp plan of redesigning the typical sections for roads. What we're intending for in the future is all of our collectors and all of our arterials to have 10-foot trails on both sides. We're working with the Walmart Foundation or the Trailblazers, and they're wanting us to build large sections of trails at a time. So we'll be taking right away and working with them, and their funding will be building longer sections of trail is what they're suggesting. Yes, our goal is to have trails on both sides of collectors and arterials. We figure if they're intended for moving the public from one place to another, we want to be able to move bicyclers and pedestrians in that same fashion. The developer will be responsible for adjacent street improvements as part of this. I hope that helps.
Well, just in challenge, Rick, and I know you and I have had some conversations about this, moved quite a bit over to my side to create the ditch and the such that were developed. And so you are way into my right of way at this point. So I'm not understanding how they'll actually put further over my way. I think it will have to shift to make that even out. Otherwise it is then against my fence. So just forewarn concern.
We do try to correct back up to the center line, section line or quarter section line or subsection line. We try to correct back to those at those points because we knew and we know that we've had issues with property owners in the past not giving the right of way, and we had to slide to one side or another. But when we come back and do this construction, we do try to correct up to section lines, quarter section lines and such to bring things back in alignment. So
along that, and I really want to kind of harp on this just a second, utilities. And I know this is not a guarantee, but I would like it to be on radar to make those available to the existing landowners and such. And maybe not that we get it for free. I'm not saying that, but make it available that it's easier for us to access, and keep that in mind.
I'm not speaking for Frank, but I'm sure he likes every customer he can get because it's a profit thing for him. So I'm sure that water and sewer will be made available, and so will the other utilities.
The Buckhorn Flats, Rick, going through, Alicia is just joining. She's just now on. I don't know if she wants to ask a little bit about that, but Alicia, I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly. I've known her for years. But that would be the road that would go through her land. So I know she might be concerned about that. Would you address that again? What's really, and when would that be that you would be talking through how that would work?
So Bridget, I'm gonna, before we get into a deep discussion about the way that the road might go, I'm actually going to probably defer that to our comp plan discussion, which is really where some of those come into play instead of this particular proposal by the, by this applicant. I just want to make sure that I keep us on track and understand that that's part of the overall big picture of the city, not necessarily the, something as a result of this particular proposal. So, as much as I appreciate the questions and ask in regards to that, it's really been in play for about a year and a half now in regards to the comp plan, which is available, via a website, or it's also, there's a large picture of it that's down at City Hall in order for residents to review and then give any comments or questions. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Was there one other person that spoke before that had a question?
Hi, this is Lena Gibson again, 1230 Stony Brook Lane. So when somebody said that they've got that the greenhouse project's like possibly within like 5 years, maybe from, I don't know if that was a completion date or a start date because of everything else going on. So this development would be built prior to that. Is that correct?
We don't know. So what we're trying to decide tonight, and we'll go through some questions here in a minute, what we're trying to decide is if this land is consistent, to what's, what's part of the plan. And we don't necessarily look at all of the infrastructure around it, because what we don't know is if they're going to build it tomorrow, if they're going to build it in 3 years, or they're going to build it in 5 years. So what we try to put together and review is, what they're asking for, and then is it compatible? And so we'll do that. And then, the infrastructure, to Rick's point, it's just in the development stages, if you will, in the planning stages for a greenhouse. And so that's, something that will it take, 1, 3, or 5? We don't know that either. So that's, that's what we consider tonight is it mostly compatible with, the surrounding areas and the intended use of the land.
Okay. I think if, we can't get the zoning of it changed from high density down to, instead of R3 being R1, R2, I would really rather just see it be all residential instead of any commercial in there. I again think that's going to be bringing a ton more traffic, and not to say people who own commercial property don't care about the surrounding area, but most people don't tend to work in their own neighborhoods where they live. Therefore, I think that anybody who owns property within the area would tend to hopefully drive slower, maintain their property, keep it nice, and that in itself might keep some of the outside traffic down if we can't get that rezone down. And that's all I've got to say, I guess, for the rest of this meeting.
Thank you, Lena. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Yeah, this is Harold Castro from Quill Ridge Way. I just want to make you aware, The uncontrolled development already impacted me directly financially, right? I tried to refinance my house and I couldn't because it's underwater, because the redevelopment and the subdivisions that have gone up have shut down the prices in the area already. So that's one. And two, to change to a high density and commercial use in between residential areas, single family homes already, I don't see how that development really fits in. I saw the master plan and I submitted some comments on that, because it seems that the master long-term plan, right, is pushing all the high density housing south of 14th Street. So sandwiching all that between subdivisions that already exist off a greenhouse. In other towns, I've never seen something done that way, where you're putting high density with no true access to a main road other than through a subdivision. And that's why I want the board to really think about, is this the appropriate use of that land going forward? Or should we reconsider the overall master plan and really think about, does a single family residential, low density residential really fit in better in this area than a high density subdivision? Because right now there's really not the infrastructure. And the residents in Quail Ridge and Quail Hollow are already suffering the consequences of that, right? We have cement truck, dump trucks, vehicles coming in and out at high rates of speed, because there's no real artery way east-west to connect to greenhouse today. Now, if we build a huge high density complex, it's going to add to the exacerbated problem. And also, it's just, we honestly don't have the infrastructure right now to have such a development in that area. Single family home it makes more sense in the area, being that there's already 4 subdivisions that are single family home in the area.
So Harold, they are asking for single family, just so that we're clear, okay?
But single family high density, not single family residential lots like we have, right? Low density. Because Quail Ridge, what would you consider Quail Ridge? It's not high density.
I think it's medium density, because it's an R2, I think.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, all the subdivisions here are not apartment complexes. They're all single family homes.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak? Anybody new?
Alicia Dawson.
Yes.
Hi, Alicia.
Hi. I had a question about the water. I am on the corner of Buckhorn Flats Road, so I am the one that's surrounded in pink there. We're the Dawsons, and we are right across the road from Melvin's Pond. So we are considered a floodplain, flood zone area. Now, from the development from South Winds, we have taken on water just from that. And now I see there's a Featherston subdivision going to be built. And now we're building, across from me. So there's going to be more buildup of homes, because you're going to build those up. Where is all that water going to go? And how is there going to be retaining ponds? Because we just keep getting more water, is what I'm saying. So what are we doing about that?
Yeah, I have not seen the full drainage on this one, but just keep in mind that they're not allowed to put any more on you than what may already exist today. And Nicole, I don't know if they have said, I'll just look in here.
Well, we've already gotten more. So if we're not supposed to get more than what we're supposed to, then something's going wrong.
So Jeff, we won't see drainage analysis until they submit development plans. Right now, they're just asking for the use to be considered.
So we get to vote on it without knowing.
So it's part of the process, Alicia, and it's been the process for a very long time, in the fact that the developer knows that they are not allowed to put any more water on you, and it goes through the planning department, and it goes to an outside engineer that reviews it, and then it goes to us to approve before they would build anything.
Okay, because I mean, Southwind's put in a large retaining pond, but there's nothing. So there's nothing in the plan for retaining ponds as of now.
Don't know. We just, again, as Nicole mentioned, we're just looking at the proposal for them to put the R3 and the C3 on this piece of property.
Right. And R3, as the plot laid out on the information that was given out, those look like single family homes. Are they single-family homes, or is there possibility of apartments or duplexes?
They're asking for single family.
Okay. So what's the R3 then, technically then?
It's the density. So the minimum square footage of the lot is 6,000 square feet.
Okay, so smaller homes than what we have around here.
No, all we can look at is the size of the lot.
Okay.
They have stated that they would like to do by level, but we're not looking at that this evening.
By level, what do you mean by that?
I'm assuming a 2-story home.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
But it can't be part of what we consider this evening. It's simply something that the developer shared with us in their overview.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to do a final call for anyone that wishes to speak. And if there's no one else, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Tiffany, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
John, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there anyone that's opposed? All right, let's go ahead and go through what we're asked to consider. And again, they're asking for A1 to R3 single family, and they're asking for C3 in the smaller piece up there that's the approximate 7 acres. So let's go ahead and go through this. Is the rezoning consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, including the adopted land use plan? If not, why? And I'm going to say that it's actually, in line with the comprehensive plan in regard to residential. It's interesting that we actually had some business on there as well. So that's the way that I feel. Is there anyone that feels any different? So Todd, we're going to be okay with that one. Is the proposed rezoning compatible with the surrounding area and zones? Again, they are asking for a single family, residential. The commercial are things that we have talked about in regards to being able to have some neighborhood type, communities in there. There is some R3 that is around. There's some R2 that's around. There's some residential estates and of course agriculture. So there's a good mixture that's down there. And so in my opinion, it does actually fit in pretty well. Is there anyone else that disagrees or has any comments in regards to that?
Jeff, this is Craig. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
In consideration with the RE, that seems like a pretty significant jump considering that it is touching that property. I know if we were doing R1 to R3, like we would really have a conversation about that. I just wasn't sure how RE plays into that. Is it really considered that much lesser than R1 or R2? Where does it fit in?
Yeah, and I guess, we unfortunately probably have a few islands here and there. I guess is where I would say if it was an entire subdivision, from an RE, it may be considered just a little bit different, but I think that unfortunately those happen to kind of be islands. I think at least that's the way that I look at it. And I don't know if any of the other commissioners have any comments on that as well, because we've got the C2, right there. So it's kind of an interesting piece of land, the way that it's surrounded. Does that help, or any other comments?
Jeff, I have one question that, around those same terms there. He said going from R1 to R3. Are we considering R3 as by definition, or are we also considering the suggested, I guess, a draft plot from Ball Capital and what they submitted? Because what they submitted looks like around 7,500 square feet. Or are we considering the definition and R3 as 6,500 square feet lot sizes?
So we really need to consider the definition of the minimum of the 6,000, understanding that not every lot will be 6 and not every lot's going to be, more than that. So we really just have to consider what the minimum is and the fact that they're asking for single family. Because we know that some lots could be different just because of the the layout or the way that they have to put things in. Typically, some corner lots get a little bit bigger sometimes. So we really just need to consider the minimum of the 6,000 in the single family this time.
Jeff, this is Joey, and I'm not sure where this comment fits in on our 5 questions, but I do see some access issues that I'm concerned about. The subdivision with over 30 lots has to have more than 2 points of access. Without them building a road south to Quail Ridge or something like that, I have concerns about the residential aspect. And then I also have concerns about the commercial aspect coming through the existing neighborhood. I don't know if anybody shares those. I think one of the people that spoke earlier brought that up, and I think it's a valid concern.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that would fit in, Joey, because I don't think it fits in here, unfortunately.
Well, I think it kind of does with the compatibility question. So.
Well, but the compatibility should really be about the other land, not necessarily the road access, right? Or why do you think it fits in with the road access? Just asking.
Just because I think that's the most pertinent bullet that I have here. And it's talking about the rezoning, but with the rezoning, we got to assume all the uses and stuff like that. And with that, I would think access might come into play. But regardless, that's my thoughts on the matter.
Okay.
Jeff, this is John. I was agreeing with the same thing there. Same thing, Tiffany. It's can we use this as R3 with limited access, or is that even useful?
I also agree with Jeff too, because I think it probably goes in the public opposition, and it's probably a valid opposition. It's fact-based, I would say. So that might be where we discuss it.
You okay, Joey, if we put it in bullet number 5?
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to bring it up.
Okay. If we go back to the question, is the proposed rezoning compatible with the surrounding area and zones, considering just the land? Is there anybody that disagrees that this does not fit in here? So Todd, I think we're okay with that one. On the next one, would all the permitted uses in the new zone be compatible in this location and surrounding areas? So again, the single family, which is the request, does fit in. The C3, again, we've talked about, the fact in some of these areas that are, I'll call them outlying, if you will, from other parts of the city where we've, kind of placed some, this commercial, if you want to call it that, in regards to, access to, the residents. I think it fits in as well. But that's the way that I feel. And so I would open up for any questions or comments in regards to that as well. So Todd, I'm going to say we're okay on that one as well. Would the rezoning provide a benefit to one landowner, but not be considered for other similar properties in the area? And I don't think that there's one benefit to this landowner that we would be considered for the other properties. Does anybody disagree with me on that one? Okay. On the last one, let's talk about the public. If the public is opposed, why? Are the objections based upon factual information relating directly to this request or opinion-based? Does any factual information presented apply to this rezoning situation? So I kind of put them in a couple of different pieces. Traffic, we didn't, is there traffic out there? I'm sure that there is. And then would this potentially increase it? There is a chance of that. We do have the future plans, that are in place along with any improvements. I didn't get any numbers. I didn't see anything, you know, in regards to, you know, what's actually happening out there. In regards to the, trying to think if there's anything else. Valuation of houses. I didn't see any facts. Unfortunately, I know Harold talked about it a little bit, but I didn't get any facts that said that if we, you know, if this was to come in as a single family and a C3, that, you know, housing, you know, that it would impact negative. I didn't see any facts to those. You know, he did state that, but I didn't see or get anything from anybody in regards to that. That was really the notes that I had in regards to questions, you know, or comments from the public. Rick, what are your thoughts on the 2 access? I'll put you on the spot here to I don't know if you had a chance to review the plan. I think you did because you marked no comments, but what are your thoughts in regards to to making available to the 2 access?
It's really too early to say. That was just a preliminary plan. Nothing is cut in stone. Nothing is finalized. This plan can evolve into several different renditions before we get through.
All right, thanks, Rick. So I think with Joey's point and, you know, Tiffany, I agree, is probably a good spot to put it. With that being one of the unknowns, you know, I think this is one of those that we would say we're not all in agreement on, Todd. You know, in regards to that, just as a big question mark, you know, as we think about down the road. Are there?
Jeff had a question on that. So far as the access, would that be addressed in a secondary proposal whenever, if approved? The developer would then would come back with the preliminary plot and things like that, where we address entrances and exits.
Yes, we
So that
would.
would have to be approved again. Yep, okay.
Yes.
Absolutely. There would be, fire would have an input on that. I myself would have an input on that. There would be, planning would definitely have an input on it. So there would be a lot of input on that. Plus the design team would be working with us on that.
I think the key concern though was coming in off of Buckhorn Flats in general, right? Though, or off of Quail Ridge. Was that the concern, or was it just a general, we don't want only 2 access points?
It sounded mostly like if they wanted to come through the existing subdivision.
Okay, that's what I was understanding as well.
I think I'm misunderstanding your guys' comments. Are you asking if the developers are proposing entrances through the existing subdivisions?
That was what the discussion was around, in the fact that would it add traffic to an existing subdivision for one. And so Joey was simply asking, you know, would they be available to meet the, you know, the fact, and how would they plan on doing it if they were to put, you know, their 2, you know, exits, or, you know, does that make sense? So that's what he brought up. And then we had made a decision to put that under the last objective, which is, you know, the public opposition, in regards to where we felt would be the, you know, the best place to put that question, and how would that impact, you know, what we're thinking this evening. Does that help?
Even though they're zoning part of this commercial, there could be an access point to the east. And this part of this is not going to be zoned as commercial. They could have an access point to the east, and they still have the possibility and would probably use an access point to the south. So, I mean, nothing is killing this completely anyway. And like I say, this right here, they are showing an access to the east and access to the south, or two to the south.
I just think it's a little odd with the commercial back there, especially with the floodway. We're gonna have to have some bridges or something. It's just a little odd.
I think they're maintaining the floodway, Joey, if you really look at it, and they're just.
Well, if you have to bring a road to the south, right?
Yeah, they have to have a bridge over that or box culverts. Absolutely. Absolutely. But none of that's not doable. I think it would be a cool community, honestly, and myself. That's what we're looking for nationally is businesses in your neighborhood where you have a dry cleaners close to residential, or you have an ice cream shop or something like that. That's the one thing that everyone is wanting to see back into the communities, the mom and pop type stores there, where it may be a babysitter there or something like that. This would be very good. A daycare, not a babysitter. That's kind of old school. Excuse me.
I knew what you meant, Rick. But... All right, so we've gone through our 5 things to consider. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns from any of the commissioners or staff?
Jeff, it's Craig. Just wanted to ask the applicant just a simple question, if they had considered R2 or not, just to get their take on that.
James, are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I believe that there's a misconception somewhat about the R3 and the R2. I think that actually that the R3 is absolutely the least impactful of development possible to this property. The area's property values will be enhanced with this property and the integrity of the community will be held steadfastly with the single family. That's exactly what we wanted. We did not want an R2 whatsoever, or multifamily. And I believe that the business aspect of this proposal will be done tastefully and will be a very nice segue that will fuse these communities together. I believe it's really, it's our desire to create something that's going to hold its value and be an asset to the communities around it. So that is why we did not consider at all the R2. We feel the R3 is less impactful and can be done very tastefully with design and construction that will be an asset to Centerton. And that's kind of how we are. In regards to Miss Townsend, or Sandra Townsend, we will be putting up the fences, and we'll do everything possible to be compatible with the adjoining landowners.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners? Anything else from staff? All right. I'm just browsing here real quick, guys, just to make sure. All right. If there's not anything else from any of the commissioners, then I would entertain a motion in regards to the rezone for the Heron property, which again is at 960 Buckhorn Flats. They're asking for A1 to R3 and C3.
This is Jerry. I make a motion to approve RAZ 20-15 Heron property from A1, agricultural A1 to high density single family residential R3.
Thank you, Jerry. I didn't know you had joined us, so welcome. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is John. I'll second.
All right, we do have a motion and we have a second. Todd, will you do a roll call vote for me?
Sure. Ben Lewis,
Ben, we lost Ben. He's coming back on. Just give him a moment.
all right, we'll come back to Ben. How about John?
Yes.
Jerry Harris,
Yes.
Tiffany Morris,
Yes.
Amber Beal,
Yes.
Craig Langford,
Yes.
Devin Murphy,
Yes.
Joey Engel,
Yes.
Jeff Seifarth,
Jeff's a yes as well.
and then Ben Lewis.
Yes.
All right, that's everybody.
All right. Thank you, guys. Good luck, James. All right. Next on the agenda this evening under new business is subdivision 20-11, The Pines, the Hatcher edition. This is preliminary plat and plans at 11505 Walters Road, R3 single family, 134 lots, 38.91 acres. And is the applicant or the owner here? Or
This is John Wary. Yep.
Oh, hi, John.
Hi, Jeff. This is John Wary with Morrison Shipley. I'll be representing this project. Project before the commission is a preliminary plat and associated design and construction drawings for a 40-acre subdivision along the west side of Walters Road, just north of Herbaugh Road. The development is a single-family R3 subdivision, which will consist of 134 single-family lots, a sanitary lift station lot, and a tract for detention. The lots vary in size from, they're generally 60 feet wide, about 7,500 square feet, and they range up to 80 feet wide, a little over 10,000 square feet. The plan is to develop this in 3 phases, approximately 65 lots in the first phase, and then 35 lots plus or minus in the second and third phases. Associated with this, the developer will be improving Walters Road along their frontage to a modified section, matching the section that was constructed with Orchard Park to the north. And then the county and the city and the developer have reached an agreement to improve all of Walters Road from Herbaugh to south end of Orchard Park. So it'll be an asphalt road all the way from Herbaugh Road to Highway 72. I'm asking for, actually it's got requested 3 waivers. One to be able to use HDPE pipe in the right of way, not under the paved sections, the type MO round storm structures. And I had a request for a waiver for the hydraulic grade line in the storm system. We had a couple inlets we're having trouble with. We got those fixed, so I would like to withdraw that waiver and just keep the first 2 waivers for consideration. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions anyone has.
All right, thanks, John. We'll go ahead and have Diane, do you want to go through the staff portion?
Sure. I mean, you know, John pretty much did half of my job already. Thanks, John. As John explained, this is on Walters Road, and they are going to be improving Walters Road. They have proposed 134 single-family lots, 1 lift station, and the detention tract. It's about 3.4 units per acre, with an average lot size, as John said, about 60 by 140 or 0.19 acres. The waiver request, I will update the information because John said you were going to withdraw the HGL waiver.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The other 2 waivers for the storm piping in the right of way, but not under the street, and the round barrel drainage structures. Those were accepted by staff. Those were supported by same engineer and staff. Walters Road, it is a collector on the current master street plan, and also the proposed one is a major collector. So the current, it's 60-foot right of way, and the proposed is an 80-foot right of way. They are dedicating 30 feet of right of way from the property line with the final plat for this subdivision. And there are two adjacent street agreements. One is with Schuber Mitchell and the city, and they will be doing kind of an alternative improvement section on Walters Road along the area that fronts the Pine subdivision. They will be doing 24 feet of pavement for 24 feet of pavement width, 4-inch asphalt, 6-inch base with 2-foot gravel shoulders and roadside ditches. This is similar to what they did on the north end of Walters Road by Orchard Park. And then they will also construct a subgrade, ditch grading, and driveway culverts on Walters Road to Herbaugh. No sidewalks or streetlights are proposed. The cost estimate on that is about $157,000. And then Benton County and the city of Centerton have agreed to build the subgrade on the remaining distance of Walters Road. So that would be from the north end of the Pine subdivision up to the south end of the Orchard Park that they're just about completed with. And Benton County will pay for the asphalt only. And the shared portion of the road will be laying the asphalt on the whole road for, it's going to be a total overall of 3,900 feet of new paving. So as John stated, in the end, it will be a paved road all the way from Herbaugh to Highway 72. This subdivision does have 2 entrances. They're onto Walters Road. And then there are 3 additional stub out roads, one to the north, one to the west, and one to the south. So those will be there if property in either, in any direction develops near this property. Now, the fire department did state that a complete access easement for fire trucks should be completed with that first phase, so that way exists through all 3 phases. John is aware of that, and so is the developer. It doesn't have to be a final surface grade road or anything like that, but it does have to be able to support 75,000 pounds for fire apparatus if they need to get in there for any reason. Water and sewer, the proposed connection to public sewer is from the lift station there in the southwest corner near the detention pond. And there'll be a force main to a manhole on the southeast corner going down toward, it's at the corner of Herbaugh and Walters. Correct me if that's not correct, John, but it is there at Walters and Herbaugh. And then they're going to be connecting to water from the existing line on the east side of Walters Road. And then the only, there are some utilities along Walters Road. There's some fiber optic and telephone that are on the west side of Walters Road. And they are, of course, dedicating 20-foot general utility easement along the west side of Walters Road, and of course on the frontage for all the lots that face the street. The only existing easement is a water line in the southeast corner. You can see it kind of goes diagonal across that southeast corner of the property. And it is not located in any floodplain, nor is there one. It doesn't seem to be anywhere nearby. Morrison Shipley has had Habitat Architects come out to look at the ponds that are existing, because there are two ponds existing. One's kind of in the middle of the north part, like just below the north property line. And then there's also one in the southwest corner near Walters Road that are farm ponds. But Habitat Architects did say that they weren't, anything connected to anything else or anything that's going to cause issues with, environmental type things. There's no common space proposed other than, there's an open pond, and it will be the detention pond will actually be a retention pond, and it'll have a normal depth of 4 feet, and it will have aeration. And John, did you guys figure out where you were going to get the power for the aeration to the pond?
Yeah, we're working with Care Electric on that.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, because that was a question we had. And then at the max depth, like the 100-year is 7 feet, but it does include a 10-foot maintainable area on the top, and also a 10-foot safety shelf in the pond also. It does have 2 double 30-inch pipes that drain to the pond from the north and the east. And then the discharge is there to the southwest. And the drainage analysis has been approved by the city engineer. The only people that had comments is myself, and one of them I just asked John. And he has already provided a legal description of Tract A, and at least has given me the square footage and everything for the detention area. And then there were some comments from engineering, but most everything has been cleared up. And the state fire code requires a 14-foot lanes, curb to curb on either side of an island and an entrance. And John has said that those are at least 14 feet. I think they're a little bit wider, actually. And that's all I have. I've talked plenty long enough. So if you guys have any questions, and I see Rick has a hand raised, and I think Josh Henthorn did also.
Rick,
fire away.
I'll recognize you.
I just wanted to clarify part of the adjacent street improvements. Walters Road was identified prior to the high school being built. This improvement of this has been in the process prior to the high school. The improvements got delayed somewhat with changing of a county judge and just my money to do it. So we're fulfilling the original traffic study that was done prior to the high school. And we're online on the time frame that it should be done. But this was developed, and we've been in the process of this prior to the high school being built. And the section in between his 2 subdivisions is not incorporated or anything doing with that. It was just part of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks, Rick. And did you
Yes,
say
I'm sorry, Jeff.
Did you say there was someone else, Diane?
Oops, sorry, I muted when I shouldn't have muted. We do have Josh Henthorn. He's with CEI, and he has reviewed the plans. I think you're good to go, Josh.
Thanks, Diane. Josh Henthorn, I'm with CEI. I was working with David Todd a lot with city engineer on this project. After looking through the drainage part of it, kind of the overall landscape is, you have your acting farm pond on the north end. There's one in the southeast corner, and there's also another one that's just off the property to the south. It's a little bit smaller than the one in the southeast corner. This property, there's a ridge line probably going down the middle, takes on a lot of offsite coming on from, I guess, what is that, 72 highway? I'm not sure the number, the one right due east. And you actually have culverts coming underneath Walters Road. The way we reviewed it, I've kind of been working with John the last few days to hash out some of the remaining issues. It'd be more of a conditional approval. Basically, they're taking on a lot of the offsite routing it through their retention pond, kind of subletting a little bit that's going on in their southeast corner and letting that farm pond to the south act as it is right now. I would feel comfortable with everything they're doing, kind of how they displayed their drainage to the southwest and the south property owners. Then we've sent the kind of last few just minor conditions to Diane, and John's aware of them as well.
All right, thanks, Josh.
And those conditions are in y'all's PC, your full packets.
Okay. Any questions or thoughts or comments from any of the commissioners?
Jeff, are there sidewalks along the Walters Road, the property?
I think that the answer is no. Diane, is that correct?
That is correct. It is just, let me double check, make sure I'm not telling you a fib. But I believe that it is identical to what they built on the north end, and it's just gravel shoulders and road ditches. There are no sidewalks or streetlights proposed. Yes, thank you. There's the diagram.
Yeah, I guess my concern being so close to the schools and we have these transportation issues and having kids walk to school, but there's no sidewalks. So what does that look like in the future to add those if we don't add them up front?
I'd like to address that again, working with the Walmart Foundation, Trailblazers. They're saying to not build these in little sections like that, hold on to everything, prepare for the future and build large sections at a time. They said they've had a lot of issues with building short sections at a time. And a good example of that is what we're having on Highway 102B at the new traffic signal. It's not all fitting together with the design that we had and the design that they're coming with. We're working on that, working to rectify that, but it's turning out to be a big issue. It's better when you design large sections at a time, not just these little sections. And Walmart said, the Walmart Foundation, Trailblazer said, if you have a chance, put it into the roads, plan for the future, and put your money in the future in large sections, miles at a time.
Thanks, Rick. Ben, does that help? This thing is kind of one of those out there on an island as well. There would definitely be quite a bit of area, I think, to the Rick, the west and the south that would not necessarily be connected. Is that kind of a fair assumption?
That would be a fair assumption. And part of that property, I don't know that it was going to be quite a few years before it ever develops. It would be part of the link that we would be looking at because it's two property owners, and I don't see us getting right away or getting easement across their property very easily. And that's what we run into. But, and one of the things that the Walmart Foundation has told me, be patient, we'll get it. So it's just one of these things. Let's be patient, plan for the big sections at a time when we do.
Yeah. Okay.
Have a good question, Ben. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from any of the commissioners? All right. If there are not any, we do have two waivers to consider, and we'll do two separate motions, if you will. One for the waivers and then one for approval of the preliminary plat and plans. And both of these waivers, which I think we're actually going to discuss in a little bit, are supported by staff. As John mentioned, the third waiver that he was asking for has been removed. So if there's no further questions or comments, what I would do is entertain a motion for the waiver request, which is the use of the HDPE and the round barrel structures.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to grant the waiver request for the HDPE storm pipe and the type MO storm box structures.
This is Jerry. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there anyone that's opposed? All right, next I would entertain a motion then for the preliminary plat and plans for subdivision 2011, The Pines, also known as the Hatcher Edition. It's at 11505 Walters Road.
This is John. I'll make a motion to approve subdivision 20-11, The Pines, preliminary plat and plans.
This is Craig. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there anyone that's opposed? All right, thanks, John. Thanks, Diane.
There is also an adjacent street agreement also.
Oh my gosh. All right.
I couldn't get in fast enough. I'm sorry.
So I'll entertain the motion to approve the adjacent street improvement as well.
This is Jerry. I'll make a motion to approve the adjacent street agreement.
John, I'll second.
Motion and second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Diane.
Next on the agenda this evening is subdivision 20-12 Orchard Park Phase 5. This is at 11989 West Arkansas Highway 72. It's R2. It's 27 lots, approximately 7 acres. Let's see, is the developer on to give us just a quick overview or?
No, that's what I was looking for. I find that very odd. They knew they were on tonight, so I don't know what happened.
All right, Diane, will you go ahead and take us through?
Sure. Well, basically, we are driving up the street from the south end of Walters Road to the north end of Walters Road. This is the final plat for Orchard Park Phase 5. It is a total of 27 lots. Here in the little blue box on Cortlandt Street. They have been doing them basically street by street for the past couple phases. It is a total of 27 lots. And of course, it is owned R2. They do have the variances that you guys approved back in 2018 for the 10-foot reduction of lot widths and also 5 feet reduction in the 25 rear yard setback. All adjacent street improvements for Orchard Park have been completed. They were completed in Phase 3, and the City of Centerton did release the bond for that project because it was completed to the city standards and approval. Covenants, they were all recorded back in Phase 1 back in June of 2016. There are bonds for this phase, the street bonds for, the maintenance bonds for the 2 years at 100% is $87,150. The drainage also at 100% for 2 years is $65,795. And then your water and sewer, of course, that one's 1 year and just 50% of the total. That total was $140,404. So half of that is $70,202. They will be also providing a performance bond for backfilling the curbs and placing the back dirt. Rick has also requested that, Rick and the developer has requested that they hold off on putting in their crosswalks until a majority of the construction is completed. So that will need to be added to this performance bond cost, and also hydroseeding the right of way. These are all pretty much typical bonds that they have done through all the phases because they are building the houses darn near as quick as they get, one phase completed. Every time I go out there to do a new inspection, I was like, wow, there's lots of new houses everywhere. So as of right now, the bond shows at $8,352 but that probably will change a little bit, you know, depending on how much those crosswalks cost. PC approval and recommendation for council acceptance are needed for Orchard Park, whoopsie, phase 5, caught a typo, final plat, and the required warranty bonds and any performance bonds for outstanding items. The final plat was approved by staff back on the 24th of August. Record drawings and drainage reports, they were also approved on the 24th. Final site inspection, they only had to have one because they pretty much, after 5 phases, they pretty much have it all together. All punch list items have been addressed. The only outstanding item is those warranty bonds. I did talk to their bond originator today, and she will get those mailed to us tomorrow for council meeting. I just have all kinds of messed up things. On the council meeting, that should be the 8th of September. And that's it. They've gotten pretty good at this by now.
Thanks, Diane. Any questions, comments, or concerns from any of the planning commissioners? If not, then I would entertain a motion for subdivision 20-12 Orchard Park Phase 5. Again, it's at 11989 West Arkansas Highway 72, R2, 27 lots, approximately 7 acres.
This is John. I motion to approve subdivision 20-12 Orchard Park Phase 5, final plot.
This is Joey. I'll second that.
Motion and a second with the understanding that the performance bond may be adjusted slightly, as was stated in regards to the crosswalks. So have a motion and we have a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Thank you, Diane.
You're welcome. I hope you enjoyed your travel up and down Walters Road this evening.
Yep. All right. Next on the agenda this evening, we do have some other discussion, and this we kind of pushed from the last meeting in the discussion in regards to upcoming proposed code revisions, Title 15 being bondable items and a landscape ordinance, and Title 16, the stormwater manual. Just going to be Nicole, Lorraine, combination.
Combination, I think. And I think we would like to start with the stormwater manual if y'all are amenable to that.
Nope, I can't handle it right now.
Can't handle that dysfunction. Okay, I assume you're sarcastic, so I'm going to ignore you. Respectfully ignore you, of course.
You even labeled it as 6A and you didn't change my agenda on purpose.
Your agenda, what did I do wrong?
Oh, it's all 6A.
Oh, yeah. Tried to catch me, but I'm sneaky. Okay, so and maybe Lorraine, if you want to jump in and give kind of an overview, or Rick or John, everybody's available to answer questions. But essentially, there's some low-hanging fruit that we'd like to address in the drainage manual and avoid some of the repetitive waivers that we've been getting. And so in doing that, we found some other low-hanging fruit. Rick had mentioned today, and he can elaborate, that there's other revisions that are needed in the manual, but this is really, we're looking at this as a Band-Aid to kind of get these simple things addressed. Do you want to say anything, Rick?
No, you
Lorraine. Sorry.
You addressed it. This is the low hanging fruit. You're absolutely right. We keep going with the same waivers every time. Let's clean them up. Joey, as you addressed.
Okay, Lorraine, did you?
I really
say-
don't have anything until, I mean, as we go through things, like, then we can discuss them.
Sorry, it's jumpy. Okay, so our first change, this was previously 100 and there were some conflicts with the years. And I believe, John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, all the conflicts were basically referred to this section, and it was revised to be the 50 year.
Yeah, I think that's basically correct. This table did state 25-year design store broken
Oh,
channels,
25. I'm
but there are
sorry.
other places out the manual where it's 50 years. So we made this revision to basically match the other sections.
If there's no questions on that one, the next sheet addresses the material. This is a waiver that we see a lot. And it's essentially allowing the, well, I'll let Rick and John talk about this because I feel like I'm a little bit, it's a little bit over my head.
No, it's just simply quite an update of materials. RC pipe is still a great product, but the HDPE and HP pipe is an improved product now. It's easier to install, it's less joints, it's just cleaning up a lot of things we have like that. So nothing really.
No questions or comments. I'm going to keep moving. This language was added to address some of the rear yard swales and to really discourage them. But if they are used to kind of limit them in terms of steepness and depth, in light of a recent discussion we've had with the maple swale and elsewhere throughout town. Any thoughts or comments here?
I mean, other than saying no to an open ditch, we really don't have a choice. I mean, I think we just have to make it more comfortable for the homeowners, right?
Yes, and they're discouraged.
I understand.
So it would be up to you guys, yeah, essentially in the design, or I guess staff would recommend. I think in our discussions with staff, there may be situations where they are appropriate. And so just disallowing them across the board might not be the appropriate way of handling them. So this was our take on it. But we're open to thoughts.
Hey, Jeff, this is John. I just wanted to mention something here. I don't know if you all have been out to Maple Estates, but there's a lot of grading in the rear and the side yards to direct stormwater out of the backyard and eliminate ponding. And I think this is kind of what we're looking at. There's sometimes when you got to get the water out of the back to the front, and whether you want to call it a swale or a ditch or whatever it is, you end up with something. And I think what we're trying to do is just provide a little bit of a direction that there's some guidance for what we're looking for.
Yeah, and I think this is almost where we landed out there, right? And so I think that it becomes acceptable, and in my opinion, you know, then I just, whoever's buying it, do they understand what it means? And so I don't know that we can, you know, we can't force a developer or, you know, whoever's selling it to share that with the resident, which is, you know, a whole nother story. But I just, you know, if it's there, we should encourage them as much as possible to somehow have that conversation, or at least, you know, for the homeowner to understand.
John, I do have a question for you. If these open ditches are designed to the 50-year, then what do they have to provide to show what the 100-year and is, so that you know what the width of the easement will be?
Well, I guess from my perspective, this is where it gets a little bit complicated, because rarely do we see these subdivisions designed with this ditching, the detailed grading on the lots that shows ditching. You know, on occasion we'll see where they might be trying to take stormwater across the backyards, across the neighbor's yard, across 3 or 4 lots or whatever, to get it to discharge somewhere. I think, Noreen, I think most of what we see is actual grading that's done by the homeowner. And we never see it. We don't have an opportunity to review that. But I guess to answer your question, if someone were to propose, you know, swales or channels, yeah, there would have to be some kind of a design associated with it. And we would see that at the subdivision design. You know, I think it'd be very difficult to consider these, you know, these drainage swales that might go between 2 houses where you got 14 foot from house to house, and you've got a, you know, some grading that appears to be a ditch, and model it for a 50-year or 100-year storm and provide freeboard and separation from the house and all that stuff. There's just no way to do that. So you asked a question I'm not sure exactly how to answer.
Okay, well, it states that the easement will be for 100-year water surface elevation, correct?
So if there's an open channel or a ditch, let's say in the rear yards, then yeah, that should be in a drainage easement, and it should be designed to carry, you know, the 50-year event and the 100-year event contained in the easement. There's some examples of what we've seen recently, and this maybe not even apply to this discussion, is Valley Oaks. And they completely separated the ditch from the lots.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there may be the situation on occasion which we ran into this in Maple Estates Phase 1, where the design includes a ditch in the backyards. And we all know where that can end up.
Yeah.
I think
One
that's
thing,
the part in our code says that this goes to the responsibility of the property owner or the POA or the future owners, because lot 1, 2, and 3 may maintain that drainage swell, but lot 4 puts a flower bed across it and blocks it all. He's flooding his neighbors. So these drainage swells become such an issue that it goes back to a civil matter in a sense after we get through with it.
Lorraine, was your original question regarding, so that in this section, it says that the open channels are designed at 50 years.
yes, I
But then
thought
the
that there
easement,
was a statement that was going to be put in here that kind of clarified that somewhat.
well, we can keep looking at that as.
Okay. The other thing I wonder if, like open ditches, open channels, like we do have, you know, properties that do have like a creek running behind a natural ditch that this would not necessarily be applicable to. So I don't know if we need to do any kind of disclaimer on that, but something to, like an oak tree or Versailles, all those have, you know, the creek running down in the, I mean, a lot of them have the creek below area at the back of the lots.
But if it's, I guess my only question is if it's a natural thing, Lorraine, is that different than something that's designed?
Well, that's why, yes, to me it is. I mean, if to me, it kind of is that if you're expecting that these lots are all going to be fenced, and I also think that they need to note that there's an open channel, on a property. But
I think with that though, again, back to my original statement, if that was presented, I'll call it, to the average homeowner, they're not going to understand what that means. And I think that's kind of where Rick's going. We're going to end up with a battle in regards to that. So should we introduce something that says it should be separated? I don't know, and I don't know what we can legally do there. But if it was, completely separated, then that fence wouldn't be allowed to go over it.
Right.
Right.
And that's what we used to do. We used to watch for those areas that if they had an open channel, they either separated that off as common property, or we had a note that they wouldn't be able to, fence that part of it or something.
Absolutely agree with you, Lorraine.
Fayetteville has code that describes riparian buffers and things that cannot be built within so many feet of natural creeks and that sort of thing. And that's sort of what this is sounding like.
Well, natural creeks and drainage swells are a little different, but I think they should be treated the same.
I know what it looks like and could feel like on the plan. How do you communicate that to the homeowner without causing issues? And I say issues meaning, do they understand it? Is it clear? And I think that's where it potentially gets lost. Just trying to eliminate any, future where we have to, have 3 or 4 months worth of conversations, to various homeowners to try to explain, what's going on or what happened,
And personally, I agree. That's what we're seeing. A lot of people buy the property and their fences are not at the property line. That drainage swell is behind their property line, but it's not ever conveyed to them that their property line goes behind that and there's a drainage swell there. I feel that's misrepresentation of what they're buying.
This is Jerry. I have a question, and my question is basically coming from absence of knowledge. But John was talking about a drainage going across 2 or 3 properties. Is it feasible to require the developer to put culvert in and have that water run underground rather than? So I'm kind of ignorant of this. I'm just kind of asking this in the form of a question. Rather than have a swell or a ditch, is it feasible to do a culvert underneath?
What do you end up with though? Do you end up with beehive drains in their backyard collecting the water, or do you have open pipes collecting the water? You end up with situations that at some point you're collecting that water in some fashion to convey it. Do you want an open flared in section in your backyard? Do you want an open beehive drain collecting the water that you need to observe and make sure that the grass is not collecting around it or anything like that, leaves are not collecting around it? There's always an issue with those. And when we allow them in their backyard, it's not the city's responsibility. It becomes the homeowner's responsibility to maintain those.
So Jerry, I think it's a very valid question, and I think either way it potentially creates an issue. And I think I've been a little more knowledgeable or involved with the whole Maple Estates thing, and I think the reason it's discouraged is because it creates all these potential issues. Whether it's something that's closed, and I think what Rick was saying is it can't necessarily be closed, but if it is open, then we know what happens. I mean, including, Rick even shared, the fact that this common property, if you will, even the lot behind him, I think, or the piece, behind him is not necessarily maintained all the way down. So there's multiple things to think about in regard to this. Discouraged, is not strong enough for me, but I understand, why we have to put it in there.
Thank you.
Do you want to highly discourage, or do you want stronger language in it?
I think we've learned a lot, that as we went through any of the plans, that we would certainly be able to address these, and maybe through that it would be highly discouraged after they had to help us understand before we approved it. Does that help?
Okay. The next, unless somebody else has anything to say on that point, I think that's all in this section. Oh, yeah, so section 5. Let me zoom in a little bit. This one got small. And John, feel free to jump in to describe some of these. Some of this is just clarification.
Maybe we lost John.
No, I'm here. I guess I forgot to hit my button. Okay, so the changes there under downstream conditions, that's just some rewording that I don't know that changes the law. Just I think it gives the city the option to request additional analysis if we suspect there's something downstream needs to be looked at. I think before it said, it didn't say that the city engineer may request it. It just stated that a study downstream needed to be done for a certain length in a certain area that was rarely done. So I just thought that was a little bit of cleanup. Under volume of detention, this has been a discussion for, I think, several years, but and I'll speak to this because I think these are my edits. But the current manual allows the design engineer the option of using various hydrological methods for designing stormwater detention. And this kind of made reference that maybe some of that flexibility was going to be controlled by the city. And I guess it's always been my opinion that we have to be careful about directing the design engineer of the method he has to use if he has options to select the method. And that's really all this does. And I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody. It might to Joey. But the most common methods of hydrology that we use in Northwest Arkansas are the SCS method and the modified rational method. And cities differ across the board. And I'm personally of the opinion that the modified rational method is a better method for sizing detention basins, because the end result is you get smaller flows, smaller peak rates, and therefore smaller outlet structures. And thereby the basins tend to hold water back more and actually mitigate the increase in peak flows. Where the SCS method tends to be over conservative, and you tend to get larger systems that don't appear to do much, because the rainwater comes in, the rainwater goes right back out. So anyway, all that's to say is that the manual gives the design engineer the option. And I personally think in this situation, we should allow the design engineer to make the decision and be careful about taking the responsibility as the city and directing him how to do it. Does that make sense to anybody? No? Okay. All right.
It does, John.
I got you,
Okay.
John.
That's 2 in your favor, John.
Jeff, I also wanted to mention that there is a hand raised. It's a phone number ending in 983. I'm not, if you would like to acknowledge them now or later.
Let's get through, how many more pages of this do we have for the stormwater? Sorry, I threw you for a loop there.
Got a few.
I'd like to finish at least the stormwater if the person on the phone can wait.
Nicole, did you want me to discuss this as well, or?
Yeah, if you could just kind of take the lead, I think that might help move us along.
Okay, I think what we're trying to do here, and I know there's a lot of different opinions on staff and they're probably on the commission level as to what kind of criteria we need for detention basins as far as the maintainable area around the top and any buffers around the perimeter. And I think that's really what this is doing, discussing those buffers and perimeters. And then I guess, I'm sorry, the paragraph above that with the purple text is basically stating that there's no portion of the detention basin berm can be on a lot or encroaching a public easement. We run into this from time to time where the back slope or the foreslope of the berm is actually into the utility easement or sometimes into the lot, and we're just trying to define how we want those to stay out of the utility easements and off the adjacent properties. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
This one here is addressing the trickle channels in the bottom of detention basins to help basins drain better if you've got a relatively flat bottom. And so it was our opinion to strike this from the manual to allow the trickle channels.
Are we going to dictate a slope, a minimum slope, John?
Well, presently we don't, but that's something we could do. I think it's kind of common rule of thumb for concrete is to maintain at least a 0.5%. And I think that might be reasonable to.
Yeah,
put that
I
in.
would think 0.5%.
Okay.
We had also discussed adding some language about incorporating bioswales or recommending bioswales.
Sorry, I moved too fast. And that might be a down the road thing to get these Band-Aids through unless there's a simple way of handling them. The discussion in particular, was encouraging the bioswales. I don't know if y'all have seen the junior high site, but instead of a concrete swale in the bottom of their pond, they have like this nice rain garden type thing in the bottom. And so just encouraging people to consider those types of methods instead of concrete. But that has not been drafted yet, so. I think that's it for section 5. So we'll keep moving. To section 7. John, if you'd like to take it away again.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay, this is primarily adding in the option of using the State Highway Department type MO round drainage structures. And there's just a little bit of language talking about how we'd, like to see them, the subgrade or the underneath them properly placed. And then there's a little bit of a discussion about steps, I believe. Yeah, and we're basically just saying that they need to follow the type MO inlet detail with regards to size and pipe size and that kind of stuff. Item 6 talks about if the structure is actually onto the street, then it needs to be backfilled, embedded with Class 67. Any questions there? Okay.
No.
Okay, keep moving along.
It just talks about if the structure's in the street, the top has to slope to match the street grade so it drains. And there's a smooth transition if you're driving over it.
And I think there's just one more comment in section 8.
Oh, yeah, this is one of our favorite hydraulic grade lines. And this was my thought, to not change the requirement, but to allow the city engineer to make the call if the hydraulic grading line doesn't meet the 2 feet, and we've worked through the issues, and he's got a couple that don't meet it. Give the city engineer latitude to prove it as opposed to asking for a waiver from the commission. But I'm happy to yield to the commissioner's thoughts on that.
I think that's fair. I think we run into a lot of them where we have that issue and they've done everything they can. And, I think it's a last resort and I think it always needs to be treated that way. But I think it's fine to leave that in there.
Okay, I think that's all. The proposed edits. Laureen, what's the next step? Ordinances that come through you guys require public hearing. So Laureen, do they need to request the public hearing be scheduled?
Yes.
I think you're muted.
Yes, these will need to go to a public hearing, so it is the commission's wish that this be brought before you as and the public, put out there. We have to publish it to the public. So we would not be able to do it at the next meeting. We would have to do it 2 meetings. Because we don't have enough time to publish.
First meeting in October.
Yeah, October 6th.
So it'll be October 6th.
Yeah, let's plan on that.
Okay.
Did anybody have any other thoughts, comments, or suggestions, additions? I know this is a very technical document, so, but it does affect a lot of the developments that you guys are approving. So it does, it's important, I guess.
Joey didn't have any other comments, then I'm okay with it.
Joey, any other thoughts?
No, I'm good.
And Joey, I know that you have mentioned, before, like the 3-to-1 slope is common, but I don't know what it is in Centerton. I don't think they can build a 3-to-1 slope. So
It's 100% common everywhere, Lorraine, and I would.
Well, so I would like to keep it 4-to-1 so that they are somewhat maintainable.
But it's not on us to maintain them. And I think
It
you're
doesn't-
limiting, I think you're limiting the developers, telling them what they need to maintain it.
Well, if we go with the 4-to-1 slope and then they have to change something, then you at least have some buffer there because
Well,
we
we
have
also make-
ponds
we
that
also
all they
make
do
them-
is grow up with weeds. And
Well, we
we've got
also make
problems.
them as-built the pond. So if it's not 3 when they as-built it, they're gonna have to fix it.
Well, there's a lot of people that just don't feel comfortable maintaining a 3-to-1 slope.
Hey, Joey, if I could just say something real quick. I think the history behind this, back when this manual was put together 10, 11 years ago.
It's
I
for the
don't,
city, right?
pardon me?
It was for the city when the city was taking ponds, right?
Well, I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but I think what was
No.
happening, this may have been before the city required the engineers to as-built the ponds and certify blah, blah, blah. And they were providing a 3-to-1 side slope design and we were getting a 2-to-1 side slope. And I think the thought was, let's ask for 4-to-1, maybe we'll get 3-to-1. But as far as the opinion about whether they need to be 3-to-1 or 4-to-1, yeah, I'm pretty mixed because I'm like you. Most cities are 3-to-1 slope is what they require as your minimum slope.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know that I caught it, but are we, what are we doing with the 10-foot buffer? Because I think that was a little overkill too.
We left that in there because we have found that we need that over and over again. If they have to go in and, they come back and they have to enlarge their pond, they've got a buffer. There's been several that we've had to amend.
Nicole, would you mind
on that
scrolling
buffer.
up? I'm sorry, Lorraine. Okay, and zooming in just a little bit.
They're doing a 5-footer. Oh no, a 10-foot.
I think it's a 10-foot buffer, and then we adjusted the top of the berm from 10 to 5 feet. and
Okay.
went-
I mean, I don't agree with that one either because I think you're wasting a lot of room. You're wasting 20 feet on either side of the detention pond or total. But again, that's not my call. I just don't, it's not common anywhere else.
Yeah, and your point's valid, Joey. If you take some of these detention ponds, if you got a 10-foot strip around them, I mean, that could be a half-acre land, and
Yeah.
could be a couple lots, could be something that's.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, this one's a little bit tough, and I think there's been a lot of different opinion at staff level, and fortunately, you guys will be the ones to get to make the decision, so.
Well, and some of this is being colored by recent issues that we've had. I mean, I'm thinking of Ashmore Pond. They were actually approved at 3-to-1 slopes without a waiver, and it was built. I mean, on one of the sides, it's probably not even 2-to-1. I don't, John, you can probably speak more to that. And are they going back and adjusting the slopes of the ponds? It causes issues along the street with utility conflicts, just like in Ashmore. The steep slopes in the ponds, Maple Estates Pond hasn't been maintained from day one. It just always looks terrible. And, we're saying it's the POA's responsibility, but they're not necessarily maintaining it. So these are methods to make detention pond design conservative. If they need to come and ask for waivers, they can, but it's keeping things in. I guess it's just conservative, so that if there are issues, they can be. There's wiggle room, I guess, is how we're looking at it. And maybe 10 feet is too much.
I feel like it's a little overreaching, and I guess that's just my point.
Do you have? Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, with today's equipment that we have, with the track skid steers and the zero-turn mowers, most of these guys that are maintaining these can maintain steeper slopes and maintain the ponds. 10 foot all the way around a pond when you only have access from one side should be addressed, you know. Addressing Maple Estates Pond is an undeveloped area. They haven't been maintaining it because that's an undeveloped area of the pond. Ashmore, that was a screwed up section of the pond there. But most of it is concreted with slope paving, and there'll be small areas that they will have to weed eat, is no doubt. I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah.
But on Maple, I talked to one of the workers there and they said they have to weed eat the pond. And then the space between the sidewalk and the beginning and the slope, it sure doesn't look like it's 10 feet. And then we did have to use 8 feet on one side because they platted the lots wrong on the other side. So it encroached into it. And then plus we did make an allowance on, you know, on the channel going down, you know, of adjusting that 5 feet because it is the back of a lot of lots. You know, we can make those adjustments when we need to, but I don't know. I haven't seen too many times. I haven't seen too many ponds that actually have that 10-foot buffer around them.
But I've got 28 ponds in town that's got the 10-foot flat tops that is just maintainable areas for me to maintain. I've got ponds that have that slope that are easily maintained. My guys fly around them. I mean, sometimes it seems like an overkill.
Well, and again, this isn't being called a maintainable area anymore. It's a buffer area. So it's not solely about access to the pond. It's about conservative design to allow for wiggle room down the road and to keep ponds, you know, away from the lots, the private lots, giving some and utilities and, you know, different things that need to be accommodated.
But that property costs somebody something. You know, we're saying it's just sitting there and all we're doing is mowing it every 2 weeks. It's just.
But you're saying the POA is, right?
Somebody's mowing it and maintaining it for no real reason.
So we've heard, and this is an ongoing discussion. You know, staff, we all kind of know our various opinions on these things. But what we need is the Planning Commission to give us their opinion because y'all need to weigh in. And we've heard Joey. Does anybody else have any thoughts on moving forward?
I like 10. I'm okay with 3-1. I think if we make sure that they're accurate, but I do actually like the 10 feet. I understand we can come down.
The only thing I ask you to look at is that 10 foot in a lot of areas is just backup property lines. It's not accessible to anybody. All we need is access to that pond. If it's adjacent to a road or something like that, yes, we need the 10 foot to get down into it. But when you're saying it's just backed up to a fence, it's not doing anything, I don't know what it's doing.
Well, another thing it does, it allows to make that grade change. Either we need to start making sure that the grades tie or something then, because we've been needing every bit of the 10 foot on most of these.
Yeah, this is John, and what we're saying here is that the 10 foot is basically the standard now. If you have to, or as Rick was saying, if you really don't need that 10 foot buffer, that would just require a waiver, right?
Right.
Correct. Yeah, but
that's not to say every pond is going to have a 10 foot buffer around it.
Well, we're revising this to try to get away from all the waiver requests. So I think that kind of defeats the purpose.
We're talking about the 10 foot flat, not the slope itself. We're talking about the 10 foot flat at the top.
No, that's 5 feet.
5 feet at the top now? Okay.
Well, I mean, we're talking around the pond is the buffer area around the pond.
Yeah, I read that as 5 feet 5 feet flat for driving, and then 10-foot buffer, which is another 5 foot, right? Just you can't build on.
No, 5 at the top of a berm. If the pond has a berm, it would be a 5-foot flat.
So we're talking.
Otherwise, they build it so that it's like a peak.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
We're talking about 5 foot flat, then slope, then 10 foot from that. So we're talking quite a bit of area there. What is the 10 foot doing other than ensuring that they tie down from the top of the slope to the bottom?
How often do we get waivers for the buffer? Or do we ever?
It's
I
pretty,
think we,
it's occasional.
yeah.
There are
occasionally.
some, I mean, like Centerton Utilities, they've got to drop off, into a deep ditch. So on their detention pond, you wouldn't want a 10-foot buffer area there because it's a big down slope. But there are some now, I mean, on the 10-foot, we've had a real problem with making sure that we have allowance for utilities, along the street. So that's what the diagram is showing, is that they can use that 10-foot buffer in that utility, for that utility easement. So then that gives some separation. But between, there are developments, Willow Crossing, like the back of the sidewalk, just starts going off into a 3-to-1 slope into the pond off the back of the sidewalk. And the utilities are barely hanging on there if there's just no buffer around a lot of these ponds.
But on the back of the lots, it's useless because all of our utilities are in the front now. But I agree, we've got some of the ponds that the slope ties in at the fence line. And, that becomes a little bit of a maintenance issue. I agree with you on that 100%. But now that all of our utilities are in the front, what is that doing for us?
Well, is in that case, Rick, would it be more applicable to just write that language in there than to say that there's a 10-foot buffer if it involves a utility easement? I mean, I don't know how detailed you want to get in
I think every one of them is going to have a utility easement.
Not in the back.
John, I think
Not in the back of the lots. Everything is moved to the front of the lots now.
Right. It'll have it in the front.
Yeah, so some of these ponds are going to back up to the back of the lots, but if we approve this like this, we're going to be putting that 10-foot buffer in the back of the lots. It's just going to be a maintainable area.
So you're going to have a 3-to-1 slope coming right up to the fence.
No, but
that's what we did before, and that's how we changed it to this along before you were here, because we had those issues.
I just don't see the need in 10 foot on Lorraine. 10 foot is a huge area when you're talking the length of a normal lot of 80 foot or 120 foot. That's a huge area when you're talking the length of a single lot. That's a huge area, 10 foot.
Well,
I understand what you're saying. We don't want it to tie into it directly. I agree 100%. But 10 foot seems like a huge area when you're saying you want it on all the way around it when it's butting up to fences. And I agree that a 3-to-1 slope coming into something like that with the elevation that some of them may come into. But when we write it as a blanket policy, we're saying it's that.
Well, I totally disagree with the 3-to-1 slope.
Well, I agree with the 3-to-1. It's easily mobile. 3-to-1 slopes is what you have on a lot of highway frontages. It's easily mobile.
How many times do your mowers get stuck?
It's part of their job. Usually it's in the transitions at culverts and that type of stuff that we get stuck. It's not just on a normal slope. Normal slope, they travel fine. It's in those transitions, situations like that, not on a normal slope.
But if I think I heard Joey say that all of the big cities, meaning the big four, allow for 3-to-1. Is that right?
Correct. The majority of places I've ever worked, 90% of them allow 3-to-1. It's just it's industry standard.
So
And
trying
the buffer isn't a thing either. It's something I've only seen here really. Now I do get it in some instances where you have utility easements. You can't have water lines sticking out of the side of the pond. But a maintainable area, especially when we're not the ones maintaining it as a city, I feel is just extremely overreaching and telling people that they have to waste this much land for a possible issue in the future.
And Joey, just to be clear, the paragraph above this is where it discusses that the embankments can't encroach into the utility easements.
Okay, and it has to be looked at on a case-to-case basis, and I'm sure Frank does that.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd just like us to see, I'd like to see us get in line with the majority of everyone around here where it's seamless coming into Centerton, doing development, and we're not out here wasting people's land and money. You
100% agree with that.
You want a detention pond to be efficient. Like John said, you can get more area if you don't require these things.
I agree with you, Joey. I don't know why we would go outside of what the normal expectations are. Admittedly, a lot of this is over my head, right? But just as a general rule, I don't know why we would do something drastically different than what seems to be working for everyone around us.
28 detention ponds in town that we maintain. The only one I have trouble with is the one on Allen Road, and it's exactly probably a 2-to-1 or a 1-to-1 slopes on that one. But the big problem on it is it's a buckshot material, and my mower slide on it. Maintenance of these ponds is not what it used to be with the equipment we have today. And that's the guy whose crews maintain them every day.
I mean, Jeff, does it come down to something we all need to like, not vote on, but just express our concerns on so we know how to move forward?
Yeah, which is where I was trying to go. Understanding there's opinions from both sides as well. So I guess I could ask for a vote, if you will, from the commissioners in regards to their thoughts on a 3-to-1 versus a 4-to-1. And that gives feedback, at least, you know, to staff in regards to, you know, what we would feel comfortable with. And honestly, you know, Tiffany spoke up and, you know, she's like, yeah, I don't know, you know, other than the fact that we're out of the norm. And I think that's okay to say. And so if the commissioners have other questions or thoughts, you know, that would help them make that decision, now would be the time to ask. And then I'm probably going to ask for a vote, if you will, in regards to what each one of the commissioners would like to see.
Well, this is Jerry. Rick and his crews are the ones that maintain those on a daily, week by week basis. And so I lean toward his recommendation.
Okay.
Jerry, just to be clear, these are actually private ponds that we're talking about for the subdivisions. Rick's not maintaining them.
I do understand that, but there may come a time that the city will maybe maintaining them.
I do, and that goes back to Jerry's point about Rick being okay maintaining them.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. I thought he was talking about the ones that we maintain.
Jerry, I think what he's saying is he maintains ones that are currently at 3-to-1. So the expectation is that POAs can maintain the same exact slope. And Jeff, I had a question there. Are we voting on just the slope, or the slope and buffer, or are those two separate votes, or what are we looking at?
We'll get to the buffer in an hour, probably. I'm trying to get to the slope right now.
Oh, it's not even midnight yet. Come on.
Don't go there. I've been past midnight a couple times, so I'm not really there tonight. I don't have enough energy. So this one is particular to the slope.
Well, then I echo Joy and Tiffany's sentiment then as a vote that we remain in the industry fashion with everyone else around.
All right, so I have Jerry, John, Tiffany, Joey at 3-to-1.
I would agree as well, 3-to-1.
I agree, 3-to-1.
This is
I
Craig.
agree.
I'll go there.
Ms. Amber, I agree.
Thanks, Devin. All right, so it sounds like the commissioners are aligned on 3-to-1. Now to the buffer.
And Jeff, I had one question about the buffer. I don't want to belabor the point. Where did the 10 feet come from? Is that where did that number come from? Is that negotiable, or is that just a standard 10 feet or?
It actually came from when we built a pond that was adjacent to a lot. And you have to have a 20-foot horizontal from the 100-year. That 10-foot kept that buffer. With the 7-foot, we pretty much were close to that 20-foot horizontal. So that's what, because we used to have ponds being built where anything from the top of the berm was over on the adjacent property, because they were going like to the top of the pond on their lot.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Lorraine.
So, but it has to do with the horizontal, the 100-year horizontal.
So with that being said, who would support keeping the 10 feet in there?
This is Craig. I'll stay with the 10 feet.
Devin, is your yes up or down? All right. Amber?
I agree.
John?
Yes, I would keep the 10 feet and then ask for a waiver if it needs to change. But I would agree with 10 feet.
Ben?
I think I'd be okay going down to 5 feet, so I guess no.
Okay. Jerry?
I would go to the 5 feet in the back, but maintain 10 feet in the front of where the utility easement's at.
Oh, way to throw a wrench in it, Jerry. All right. So
Well, Jeff, that was going back to what I was saying. That could we write that to just say the 10-foot buffer is only applicable where you have a utility easement? Or is this an all or nothing type of, I'm sorry.
Hey, guys, let me just reiterate, the paragraph above is stating that the embankment can't be in the easement. So that should give the room for the utility company to put the utilities in without encroaching into the embankment.
Okay, thank you.
So essentially, wherever there's a utility easement, if it's a 20-foot easement, you should have a 20-foot buffer, really. Or if it's a 10-foot utility easement, you'll have a 10-foot buffer. So does that make sense? Wherever there's a utility easement, it's kind of creating a buffer for that utility easement.
So that doesn't the diagram kind of showed it overlapping, but it doesn't. If there's a utility easement, that is the buffer, right?
It's part of the buffer. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So if we get rid of the 10-foot buffer, there would still be a 5-foot drivable. Do I understand that correctly?
Only when there's a berm. If there's not a berm, you wouldn't. Does that make sense? So that the 5-foot drivable surface is only when there's a berm on the side of the pond, and that's not. I don't know how typical is a berm on a detention pond. Depends on the grades.
So
It's
if we
pretty
don't,
common to,
go ahead, John. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it's pretty common to have a berm on, one or two sides, maybe. It's rather rare to have a berm all the way around it. And I think it's probably pretty rare to have no berms on the pond. But I guess the berm is when you have a back slope and a foreslope.
So let me ask this then, based on the diagram showing it at the property line. If we don't put the 10-foot buffer in there, would I understand it that the fence line would then be at the 5-foot drivable? And if the 5-foot drivable wasn't there, then it would be at the top? Is that correct or not? Not knowing anything.
At the toe of the slope.
Do what, Rick? Sorry.
It would be at the toe of the slope unless you put the 5-foot in.
So if that's the case, if I'm a property owner and the pond's in my back and we don't have a 10-foot buffer, then my fence is going to be right along. So they're going to be mowing right up to the edge of my fence. Is that correct?
Well, they're going to be mowing up to your fence anyway, but I would definitely recommend the 5-foot buffer.
Okay. Do you guys see what I'm saying there? That, I mean, you might, knowing homeowners in Centerton and what I've seen, there's people going to be dumping their stuff on the back and it's going directly down into that. And I understand if there's a buffer, it helps a little bit, but not fully. So if we take that away, then they're going to, they're going to be right on the edge of that pond.
Hey, Jeff, I think something that might make it clear is there's typically going to be a berm that'd be higher. So if you have a detention pond behind you, it's not going to be at ground level. You know what I mean?
That makes it, in my opinion, it makes it worse.
Okay.
I mean, but I guess if there's not a berm though, then it's worst case scenario, right?
It'll be up. It'll be up and then it'll have to come back down to grade. So there'll probably be 20 feet of, probably 20 feet of a grade from the top of the berm coming back down to your lot if you back right up next to it. Or a 3-to-1 slope, if you will. 3 feet horizontal for every 1 foot vertical.
But
so I just want to make that clear. So you're not going to dump a yard clipping bag over into the pond.
But you're going to dump it onto a slope instead of onto a flat surface, right?
Well, the flat part would be on top of the pond.
Only if there's a berm though. Is that right? I'm just asking.
There's going to be a berm in a pond. So your flat part's going to be an extension of that berm. And then it's just going to come back down.
But if we take this out, then there's no minimum on what that berm would be, right?
Yes.
You pour enough chicken grease down in that low spot right there, Jeff, it'll fill right up.
I've seen some of those.
Just
Todd.
like that swale out back, Todd.
So instead of a 10-foot buffer, should we think about a 5-foot? Does that help anybody's give some?
Let me
people
say that
some land back?
most of our mowers are 60-inch mowers, and most of the commercial mowers are 60-inch mowers. So we're talking 5-foot. That 5-foot area at the bottom would be easily mowed with that 60-inch mower. Then you're on the slope. It just works out. If you're going 10 foot, you're making 2 passes on the bottom, and you're just extending that on further and further.
So a 5-foot buffer gives some land back, right? Joey and I forget who else had mentioned the land perspective. Does 5 feet feel better than 10 or 0?
I'm good with 5-foot buffer.
All right, so I think I've got 2 votes now for 5.
Yeah, it's John. I would go with 5 as well. I think that's a good compromise.
This is Craig. I'll switch to 5.
Tiffany, where you go with 5, you can shake your head. All right. So I think where we ended up was 3-1 and 5 feet. I would just encourage the commissioners as we think about this that, you know, when we consider the finals and we consider the as-builts, that I would definitely recommend that we adhere to, you know, making sure that those are correct. I would say, you know, as we get stronger language in some of these, you know, with these, that we should also, you know, lessen the opportunity that we offer to somehow, you know, allow those in the future, which in as-builts we typically don't. But I would just encourage, you know, us to think about that whenever we consider the finals for these subdivisions. Nicole, Lorraine, does that get us where we need to be here?
I think it does. And I think we had already gone through all the other comments. Does anybody else have any concerns they want to express while we're still on the drainage manual? Otherwise, we will go ahead and work towards the public hearing on October 6th. Get everything published for these changes for your all's recommendation. And then it'll need to go to council after that.
Okay.
For adoption.
Okay. And I do know that we had the caller, and I apologize, but I thought it was important that we continue to move forward here. So Nicole, is the caller that was wanting to speak to the commission still on, or did they hang up?
They,
This is John. That caller was me. My computer restarted, and I had to call in on my phone. So
funny.
That's all. I was trying to raise my hand so I could
Mystery
be
solved.
on my computer restarted.
You need to be like Devin to get you some flashcards so that we can, you know.
Well, the computer, it said everything went down. I no video, no audio, so I just called in on my phone while it restarted. So sorry.
All right.
Well done.
All right.
Lorraine, I might need a little bit of guidance on the development code. So just to give a little bit of history for those of you who are relatively new to the commission, we started drafting what started as a landscape code a couple years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. I don't know. Time flies when you're having fun. And that morphed into some development code as well as landscaping. And then as we were starting to incorporate that into the subdivision code, Title 15, it just kind of kept snowballing to try to get it into shape to be consistent with the rest of the code and useful. And then the comp plan rolled around and we decided to wait until comp plan recommendations were out so that we'd make sure that our draft code was consistent with what was being proposed in the comp plan. And with the delay of the comp plan, we thought we'd get the ball rolling on some Band-Aids. And the commission has asked us a couple times to get this ball rolling. So I think the intent for tonight is to kind of show you where it's at and pare down what Band-Aids you all want to prioritize and what we think can be accomplished quickly as a Band-Aid. Do you have anything to add to that, Lorene?
No, you're doing great.
That awkward explanation. Okay.
No, you're doing good.
Okay. So this outline is the main outline of the subdivision and development regulations. Essentially, the new code is in red right now to just let you know the amount of code that's existing versus being proposed. Some of these sections we've just updated and some are just completely new code. I might actually switch to the Word document because I think that will be easier. To see. Forgive me. So I'll try to keep this pretty high level so that we can get on with our evenings, and I'll let you guys tell me how detailed you want to dive into some of these things. But the general, so essentially our current code is really just in relation to tract splits and subdivisions. We don't have any regulations on site developments. Nor do we have any landscaping or really like improvement requirements and things like that, other than as it relates to subdivisions. So we've pulled out some of the general provisions that apply to both subdivisions and developments. Let me zoom in a little bit more so we can kind of some of the purpose, we've defined the purpose of the regulations a little bit more fully. We've talked about conflicts between the comp plan and other code requirements. So kind of beefed up kind of just that general section. The comp plan section will probably need to get repealed. I think we've gotten direction that the comp plan just needs to be referenced, but not an actual ordinance. So I think that section will go. We've beefed up our definitions. That's still being worked on. There's a lot of things to define in the subdivision development sections. We're pretty much, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the subdivision, so that we've taken out of the Band-Aid. We're not gonna go there just yet. Some of this has been moved to other sections. This is the procedure for subdivisions and tract splits is just being left alone for now because it just really needs a ton of work. Some of this is moved to a different section of improvements. This is the new site development code. A lot of this you've seen in the previous drafts that Juliet Ritchie had kind of drafted for us.
Hey, Nicole.
Yes, go ahead.
Are you sharing your screen?
Am I not?
No.
I was about to ask. I thought I'm not the only one.
What?
We see the first page still.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I've been scrolling through things the whole time. I won't start over. I'm so sorry.
I wasn't paying attention for a little bit. I was scrolling through one that I have open too.
I moved the screen between monitors and it must have paused my share. I'm so sorry.
Can you make
It's in
it
the
bigger?
Dropbox, so you all can delve in deeper. I'm sorry, say that again, Lorraine.
Can you make it any larger? Can you guys see it?
I can, I just don't know how much reading they're actually going to be,
Yeah.
doing. So these are some of the sections that just got moved. This is the subdivision portion that's staying. We're not addressing it right now because it needs so much work. Are you seeing it now? You're seeing me scroll? Yes. Okay. This has been moved to a different section for improvements. Okay, and this is the site development. This is where the site development process starts. I kind of wanted to fly through that beginning part because it wasn't really the meat of what we're doing. I'll let you guys look through the ordinance at your own pace. This section we started drafting as a way to differentiate between the types of site development. I think we may have pulled it from Fayetteville or Bentonville, I can't remember. We do think that this is very important, but what this is going to create a bunch of ripples in our applications and checklists, and it's going to snowball a little bit or a lot of it. So that might not be part of the Band-Aid. But we think in the near future, maybe this is a phase 2 that we need to distinguish between large scale, small scale modifications, and things like that. Because, you know, when McDonald's adds a accessory structure, we don't necessarily need to go through a full large scale review, or Rib Crib adds a smoker or something like that. We've added some provisions for the site layout and encouraging people to place their parking on the sides and rear rather than up front. But that's stuff you've seen before. Permeability, underground utilities we've talked through. I guess having gone through maybe a third of this, are you guys wanting to talk in any kind of detail, or is this method okay, just getting a sense of what we're proposing and then giving us direction on how to pare it down and or add?
I'm just going to go out and say that, you know, I think the high level is good. And for us to understand, you know, especially as we've learned, you know, and I've been trying to look at Donna's and Diane's and your comments while you're scrolling quickly as well. I mean, I think that's important. You know, and I think at least what you've tried to do is take what we've learned over the, you know, the last, you know, number of years and incorporate it, you know, into it. And so I think, you know, the high level is, you know, good for us, unless any of the commissioners want, you know, the detail line by line. And I'm going to think that most of them are not going to volunteer for that. You know, so I think the overview is good. And then if there's anything that, you know, similar to the, you know, the previous, if there's anything that we need to put some, you know, direction, guidance, definition, whatever it needs to be, then you know, that's where, you know, I'd like to see the commissioners, you know, add some comments or anything, if that helps.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we had direction.
This document is on the Dropbox. Is it editable to where we can read whenever we need to and add any comments that we want to add? Or
You can, yes. It's a PDF in tonight's Dropbox, and we'll put it somewhere so that it stays in the Dropbox.
yeah, I saw it in there. I didn't know if it was, if we could add any comment or edit it. Okay.
If you want to add comments, if you'll just save it on your devices and put your comments together, and then you can send it back to us, or if you just want to make a list of comments, however you're wanting to do it. That way this document doesn't necessarily get revised, although it lives somewhere else, so I guess it doesn't matter, but.
I can in Dropbox, can't you add comments like Diane and Donna have done? I think is kind of where John was.
Yeah.
We could leave that Word document in there and then they could add comments.
Okay, that's
If-
fine.
If y'all know how to do it. I mean,
You just hit the
Probably something-
review. I mean, because
Probably-
Dropbox will open it up in Word and
Yeah.
you just use it.
And we
Use the
can-
review function.
We
I
can
like the
fit-
comment on the right because, then everybody can see, and if, maybe whatever Donna says here about outdoor drinking fountains, spark something else, then, I'd like for us to be able to, add or, any comments or anything like that, just throwing it out there, so I kind of like it on the right-hand side if that's something we can edit in Dropbox.
Yeah. We'll make a folder so that it lives. Actually, there's a landscaping and site development folder in there right now. I think we were using back in 2019. So we'll put this Word document in there and feel free to go in and put comments in. That's great. It might give you, if somebody has it open, it might tell you you can't make edits, but you'll just have to figure that out when you open it.
Okay, yeah, just if you could let us know when it's there and,
Yeah.
then we can access it.
Okay, I'll put it in right now. We do, if you recall, we proposed an urban overlay district along Centerton Boulevard, and it kind of goes up or down Main Street, and it kind of has tentacles in places. But the main purpose of this at this point is again to kind of bring the buildings up front and put the parking behind, so you don't have a sea of parking lots. It's a brief section right now. I think that urban overlay could be developed down the road as y'all see fit. Then the next chapter is the landscape requirements. There's quite a bit added. We tried to keep it simple, give people criteria, but not be a Fayetteville in terms of complications. Irrigation, we added some tree preservation language. Some of this is still being worked out, and I think we still need to send it back to Juliet for her thoughts. So it's not necessarily a final draft. It's like a 70% draft, maybe. What do you think, Laureen?
I don't know, 90 might be a little high, but I mean, well, we have done a lot of work on that part, so.
Maybe 80. We'll split the difference.
We'll split the difference, 85.
Yeah. There's already a lighting section. We've just added a few things, reworded. A lot of it is existing and it just was reworded to varying degrees. But the lighting section is pretty standard. Okay, so this is the big new section on improvements, and it deals with both subdivisions and site developments. Gives specification, it doesn't necessarily give specifications. It refers to the other ordinances that have the specs in it, but gives kind of a more general design requirement type thing. Site. And these are basically things that we're doing now, and we just didn't necessarily have it codified. It sounds like this is somewhere else, so it might not stay in this section. There's a little bit of information on fee in lieu. Rick, in particular, you might want to look at this. I need to send it to you still. I think you had a discussion with Juliet on fee in lieu, so that was I think her proposal. This is the non-bondable and non-bondable items we discussed at the last meeting. I believe we made the edits we discussed. All I can remember, we added the amount for the final record drawings. And the alarm, I think, was the only other one. Joey, did you have something that you removed from the bondable items?
Nicole, it was the electrical stuff.
Oh, I didn't get that out. It's this stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. I looked at my notes and I didn't have great notes, so thank you for that reminder. I probably should be tracking my changes. And then this administration section, I think, is still kind of awkward. I think a lot of this can probably go up into the general provision section, but a lot of it came from the old code, and just I don't think it's been quite thought out. But that is, oh, and then there's a appendix for the plant list. The recommended species for different types of vegetation requirements. So I think the majority of this could potentially get completed, maybe not for October 6th, because it probably needs to come back to you in a better draft. But I think,
what if we shoot for the first meeting in November then, knowing that the second meeting in October, I think will be somewhat busy, maybe the first of November?
November, okay.
Does that work?
I think so. I think we could probably plan, maybe give, how long do you guys want to kind of read through this and make comments on this document?
Can we have 2 weeks?
Sure. So then September 15th, we can kind of reconvene and go over comments, and then staff can take them and go to town on the draft. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything in here that anybody's, any red flags or things that are missing in terms of your all's expectations on what we've needed to work on? I think the priorities were landscaping and the development, and then getting some improvement.
Yeah, I think those two things, along with, looking forward to the passing of the comprehensive plan, will certainly be, a couple of big things that will help us, help kind of guide us as we think about the future.
Okay. All right, Laureen, do you have any other thoughts on this one?
No, I think the main thing is giving them time to go through this, and then all getting back next meeting to discuss again, going through. And then we'll also get with Juliet again.
And
Maybe we
I would
can
say,
get something on the subdivision too.
And I would say we do have a couple of, newer folks with John, Ben. If you guys go through it and you're like, oh my gosh, I mean, this like crazy stuff, feel free to, use the staff, if necessary. They're a phone call away, an email away. feel free to ask them a question, or for more, clarification. But I think it'll be good to have a set of eyes on it, for one thing, from new people that haven't seen, or been a part of the reason some of this is there. So, I'd certainly encourage you guys to go through it and don't try to do 68 pages in one setting. It'll hurt. So do it over time. And again, if you have questions, feel free to use staff or, even shoot me an email and I can, help ask as well. So I think it'll be good if we spend a little bit of time, to go through this and then make any comments as necessary. But feel free to use the, staff if there's something that just looks crazy and you're like, man, I don't understand, feel free to use them.
Yeah, and just to give y'all some reference, a lot of this has been pulled from communities in this area, and maybe tweaked here and there to kind of suit our city. But I think in general, we agree with that premise that we don't necessarily want to be out of line with what anybody else is doing. But I think we also need to learn from mistakes and adjust as needed as well. So I think that's part of this process, as Jeff mentioned.
All right. Anything else, Nicole or Lorraine, under that portion?
No, I don't believe so.
All right. I'm going to move on to announcements. Thank you guys for all the work on that, by the way. I know that's a lot. Our next meeting is 9/15. And of course, it will be virtual as well. Just as a reminder, the comprehensive plan public hearing with City Council, October 27. I do believe in my discussions with the mayor today that all of the notifications have gone out and they've started a list with feedback and any comments. So everybody, I think I got mine yesterday. So I think everybody's been notified. Nicole did share the 2020 APA virtual cross-chapter collaborative conference on October 5th through the 9th. She did share that with us.
And there is specifically a planning commission and elected officials training session. I've heard that it's, I think, 5 separate sessions, I think 6 hours total. So they're probably like an hour a day type of thing. So if anybody's interested, that might be a great training opportunity. Those who know what the APAC training is for the Planning Commission, it's kind of a state accreditation for planning commissioners and elected officials. They are using this training in lieu of their canceled training. So it's kind of supported in that accreditation.
Nicole,
So-
if I can interject real quick, I
Go
think
ahead.
that the training for the public officials and whatnot, I want to say that those are going to be in the evenings. So that way, they understand that most of y'all have a regular job. So that way you can attend and not have to, interfere with your job.
Thank you. I had not realized that or heard that, so that's good.
Is that the reason I got 25 emails today? Because people reply to all on silly things, but anyway. All right. Anything else from any of the commissioners? Anything else from staff? Thank you guys for staying with us tonight. I know it's a lot to finish the meeting, but I think it's some very important things for us, as we think about, the future and making sure that we're, helping, staff out with some of these decisions, ahead of time. And then of course it helps us, or should help us in some of our meetings. So, I do appreciate, everyone staying with us tonight and going through that. So if there is not anything else, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
John, I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, second.
We have a motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Thank you guys. Have a good long weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Patrick's